if you have multiple devices that have different type of AV connections, what do you do if you have multiple devices but only have limited inputs on your television? That's coming up from ImpracticallyNoah Productions. Hi everyone, this is ImpracticallyNoah here. So, as you can see here, this is my studio setup. This is basically my TV stand, and behind me is my desk. But this isn't my studio tour just yet. That'll be coming soon. But let's just say you have multiple devices. Let's say you have a game console, a cable box, a DVD player, and maybe a streaming device. But you're only limited with 1, 2, or 3 inputs on your TV that use HDMI. That could be a problem. As well as if you use an old school CRT television still, you have these legacy connections called RCA. And they are limited between the different types of video quality and different input counts. So what do you do in a situation like this of limited options of inputs on your television? Well, let me show you what I got to help you prepare for your next setup. So here are the pieces of equipment that I have to show you. We're going to talk about AV switch boxes and splitters, as well as network switches, in case you have internet connectivity in your house. But the reason why I have all these AV gear to show you is because I use the Cloner Alliance Box Pro, which I did a previous video on, which you can watch up above from the cards. As you can see, on the back you have an HDMI input and a multifunctional analog audio input called the Multimedia Interface, or MMI. This can give you composite, component, and VGA. So, what do I use to coincide with this? Let me show you. Let's just start off with the HDMI output for my Cloner Alliance Box Pro. For that, I use this. This is from Ghana. This is a bi-directional HDMI switch as well as an HDMI splitter. Now, the difference between a switch and a splitter is you have, let's say, 2 inputs on your television, but you only have 3 items to connect with HDMI, such as, like I said, a game console, a Blu-ray player, and a streaming box. So how do you do that? So you can put your game console on the first HDMI input, then you can use, let's say, the switch mode on the Ghana like this. You put your streaming box here and your DVD player or Blu-ray player here. Then you press a button to select the input going out to the second HDMI. Here, we have 2 HDMI 2.0 connectors here, which can be either the output or the input. And at the other side, you have 1 single HDMI 2.0. The reason why I said 2.0 is we're going to talk about a little bit of TV specifications with HDMI. You have to understand HDMI is not just a cable, it's also a protocol. We have different specifications since the beginning of HDMI, starting from 1.0 to the current 2.1. 2.1 can support up to 4K at 120 frames per second, or hertz, or up to 8K at 60 hertz, or frames per second. But I have a 4K 60 TV by TCL, but that means I can only use HDMI 2.0, which is max capability is 4K 60, which, hey, my TV supports maximum. So how do I connect the Ghana splitter slash switch to my output of the Cloner Alliance? Well, take a look at this. This is a simple 2-inch HDMI male-to-male 2.0 cable. To be clear, I label all my cords and accessories. Here, on this label, goes into the Ghana device, like so. And the other goes into the Cloner Alliance HDMI output. Then the output can be distributed like this. But I can only select one output only, because this is more for HDMI switches. An HDMI splitter means it's a distribution. So you have, let's say, a cable box, and you have, let's say you're at a bar, or a sports bar. They have, let's say, baseball on. They have, let's say, 3 TVs. In order to do so, you need a splitter. But you need a powered splitter in order to use both outputs at the same time. Let's take a look at another splitter that I own. So this is the other HDMI splitter that I purchased back in 2024, and this is from the company Ugreen. Now, you may know Ugreen from making phone cords as well as chargers, but they also want to make it consumer friendly for those who have certain niches. They decide to make not just this HDMI splitter, but also their own HDMI switch boxes. Now, HDMI switch boxes for consumers, they can go from a maximum minimum of 3 inputs and 1 output, and a max of 5 inputs and 1 output. But they can also make a 2-to-1, a 7-to-1, and a 4-to-1. So here, this Ugreen HDMI switch box, you can get this as a 3-in-1, but I got this as a 5-in-1. As you can see, 5 HDMI inputs here, but the output is facing right. And again, I labeled this, so on the switch box, I have my first input of HDMI 1 for my switch 2, which I did a video up above, my switch 1, my Wii U, my laptop HDMI, and a test bench or other input. Then, with this weird quirky HDMI link cable I made, it goes into the input of the splitter here, and I distribute it to either my third HDMI input on my TCL TV, my Corner Alliance Box Pro, and my ViewSonic portable monitor, the VA1655. And I have a spare one in case if I need another 4th output. And I just stacked the switch box on top of the splitter. And with the link cable, unfortunately, when I got the 2-inch HDMI cable in a 2-pack, but unfortunately it's not that long enough. Even if I do it like this, it's too short. So I made this special adapter, which includes, so I got a 2-pack of the Ugreen branded angled adapters of HDMI, which this one, I have another one, which I'll show you soon with another switch box. This one goes to the output of the switch box, so it can be a straight output backwards. Then I have this flexible HDMI male to female extension, which I do like so, to kind of bend the cords later on. Then, so I also have another spare short line cord, which I connect to either of these cords will be the main connection to the input of the splitter. But as you can see, I don't want to push it too far. So in order to make a little bit more longer of an extension, you can get a female to female coupler, connect it like this, and the other female end to the male of this other cord, and then goes into the input, and there you go. But of course it goes a bit long up here because of all the HDMI inputs I have. So that was Ugreen's brand of HDMI switch box and splitter. Let's take a look at now my other HDMI switch boxes that I may or may not use currently. Alright, these are the last few HDMI switch boxes that I own. Let's start off with the one on the left. Here is a Blackweb 3-in-1 HDMI switch. You have 3 HDMI inputs and a HDMI output, and it has a micro USB for extra power. I would like to say with the Ugreen switch box and splitter, they also have a USB port, but it's USB-C of course because of the modern age. They both came with USB-C to A cables. However, with the splitter, it does require the USB cord, so you need the extra power. But I also do the same for the switch box, even though you get the power from the HDMI's voltage. But here's the problem though. If you have a setup like mine, like I showed you, you may have some interference or delays when using your devices going through distribution devices, such as the switch box and the splitter. That's why it's best to use external power if you have a power supply that's high quality to put into the inputs of your HDMI switch if it does have the option to do so. So again, Blackweb, it has LED indication, and unfortunately it's like you can do this, it's an automatic switch, but you can do manual switching overriding. Unfortunately, the Ugreen switch box, they manufacture it to have a manual selection as well as a remote. So this is the Ugreen HDMI switch remote. It requires AAA batteries. Also, these two do come with a remote. And of course, they use infrared, which is like a line of sight kind of communication. So that was the black web. This is the switch box that I use on my desk. This is from a brand called IO Gear. And unlike the Ugreen switch box and splitter, these two only use HDMI 1.4 protocols or specifications. And they go up to 4K at 30 frames per second or 4K at 30 hertz. This is IO Gear. The unique thing about this type of HDMI switch box is you can have an input coming from the front. I use this as a test bench kind of thing for my laptop with my portable monitor. So the ViewSonic monitor that I have, it does use USB-C alt mode, which is like a way to like communicate as a video cable with USB-C, but that's very uncommon for people who have different types of laptops. So that's why if somebody wants to test bench their HDMI output of their laptop to this monitor, I might as well just show the monitor. This is what it looks like, a 15.6 inch screen, and the IO is like right here. You have a mini HDMI and two USB-Cs, one's for power and one's for the video data information. If somebody doesn't have a USB-C output mode on their laptop, I have an option for HDMI. And what I use is another Ugreen angled adapter. This one is facing like left, which I use like so to go this way for laptop HDMI output to my portable monitor. Anyway, more I/O is at the back. You can put 2, 3, and 4 in the output, and of course a micro USB for extra power. This has like an IR extender and a selection button. Those are the HDMI switch boxes and splitters that I use. Let's take a look at the analog side to coincide with my Colonial Alliance Box Pro. Alright, this is the main AV switch box that I use. This is from the brand Philips. This is the model number SWS2325W/17. This is a audio component composite video S-video selector. This has rubber feet for stability, of course, and it only has 4 inputs, which you can select like this. But you can also it has like a real little red indentation. So you can just, if you don't want to see the red. Let's take a look at the outputs or the inputs. So, yep, this is a lot of I/O. As you can see, these are not HDMI ports. These are called RCA. And also this is an S-video port, which is more of what they call a DIN connection. I just use the composite and the component ends to it because that's what the MMI cable has. But it also has VGA, but of course there's no VGA in here, and VGA is a very complicated cable. But you have 3 component inputs and 4 composite and S-video inputs due to limitations of manufacturing it or the way Philips wanted to manufacture it. And of course, just 1 output for composite, component, and S-video. But let's just say, hypothetically, you have a second CRT television and you want to output, let's say, in composite in both TVs. How do you do so? Well, if you want to, you can buy adapters like these. These are basically male RCA on one end to female RCAs at the back or the other in a little dongle kind of thing, and simple wired configuration. You can just, let's just say I have it for the video, something like this. I tried to do this before, but didn't really bother to do so. That would be the output. However, it's not safe to put 2 composite video inputs, for example, in the same AV selection, because interference, and analog video is very odd because you have to have a thing called sync, which is like a data line thing of like refresh rate and the color information, and it's a whole lot of crap. Anyway, those are your options if you want to do distribution outputs. But these splitter things are mostly safe for audio. If you have like a mono setup and you want to do stereo, you can use something like this. That's the main old school AV switch box that I use by Philips. And just for laughs and giggles, I'll show you the other 2. Here is a cheap dollar store one. You can also get this as an Asian brand off of Amazon. Fortunately, I accidentally broke it and I also opened the shell to see what the circuit board was like. So you can have 3 inputs and 1 output. Some of the Asian manufacturers or aftermarket manufacturers make some with S-video output, but don't really care. And this one I used to use a lot. I found it at Walmart, but it's pretty much discontinued because we moved on with HDMI. This one is from General Electric. You may know them for washing machines, fridges, and who knows. This one is unique because you can have a 3.5mm audio jack output. So if you have like headphones and you want to listen to what you're watching or playing. But this one is only limited with composite video and S-video. So you have one input here, which I believe it's input 4. So you put input 4 here. On the back, you have your output here. They really should have made a better mold. You have the output here and 3 inputs here, and you just select on these buttons. I wanted to use this for my audio situation with the VGA, which I discussed in my Colonel Lines Box Pro video. However, due to the way it's designed, kind of looks like an accessory for a certain product, maybe a PlayStation 2, I believe, back then. You needed a way to I needed a way to make it stand in a certain way. I don't really use this anymore because the Philips one is convenient for me because of the MMI cable of the Colonel Lines. All right, that's all of the AV switch boxes and splitters I use. Let's just take a look at a bonus device that can also be a switch. So now that you know that you can get a video switch box or splitter for TVs, you can also get network switches. Now, this is the one I use. This is a 5-port one from D-Link. That's 5 Ethernet ports and a power supply and a little lock mechanism. This can be, for example, a situation like this. So let's say you have your game console and you buy games off the digital storefront, but you have pretty bad internet through Wi-Fi. What's your second option? An Ethernet cable or wired connectivity. But you either have your router somewhere else in your house and you don't want to bring it back upstairs, or you have other devices that require wired internet for better stability. What do? You use the network switch. So what I have, again with this labeling I done, so my router from my internet service provider is downstairs in my basement. So I bought a 20-foot or 25-foot black Ethernet cable, which connects to one of the router's Ethernet ports, and they go up to a vent, and it goes to this room to my TV stand. And I have a little extension just to have less wear and tear on the little plastic clip area for the RJ45 cable because it's very fragile. And I use of course, a female to female adapter to extend it. But that's what I do when connecting to the router. So the router goes on the right. Then the 2, 3, 4, and 5 are my switch 2, my switch 1. I don't have it for either my Roku or Rogers box anymore. And the 5th one is just my laptop, or if I have a desktop PC. But yeah, these were my AV switch boxes and splitters that I use for my TV setup to coincide with the Colonel Alliance Box Pro. If you enjoyed this video, you may like other content electronic related on my channel. You can watch my full review, my 2025 re-review on my Colonel Alliance Box Pro. I want to thank you all for watching today's video, and I'll catch you again next time. This is ImpracticallyNoah saying goodbye, and thanks for watching.